Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Lovely to see you all. Who here's got a glass of wine? I forgot, actually.
I was going to pour
I
myself
don't.
one.
I was thinking about it.
Gemma's had a whole bottle still.
Yeah, already. It's how I like to start a webinar. Nice and ready to go.
Yeah. I have some really exciting news. One of my Reiki students got #1 in the album charts today. How cool is that?
Amazing. That is brilliant.
How cool is that? Especially as he's not signed to a record label. He's produced the whole thing himself with a few friends. He's not radio suitable. There's a lot of swearing, lots of vulgarity. You're up against Rick Astley, which is what a battle. But yeah, just watched the video of him here in the news. So it's very cool.
Wow.
Very, very cool. So, where's everyone calling in from? Cirrus, where are you these days? You still up north?
Yeah, yes, I'm still in the Lake District.
Very nice. Is it very wet up there at the moment?
It's just a bit windy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a storm blow through. So you're Lake District. Henna, you're North Kent, aren't you? Orpington way.
Yeah, it's that. Is it North Kent or Greater London? Because we're in Bromley, Orpington. But
No.
yeah, Kent. If you go old school.
And Tara, how about you?
East Sussex, Eastbourne.
Yeah, of course. And Gemma, yourself?
I'm in Heathfield, so actually I'm not far from you, Tara. I'm about 25 minutes from you. So yeah, I'm East Sussex.
Yeah, and I'm just up from Gemma on Mark Cross in that village that nobody's heard of.
Just with the best pub. Again, it all leads back to the wine, but with the best pub for sure.
We're going there tonight, so
Oh, it's the food. That's what I die for in there. It's incredible.
very good. Cool. Right, we'll just give it a couple more minutes for anyone else to arrive. I'm just trying to see actually. How do I know? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 participants. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. Oh, here comes Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Connecting to audio. Evening, Tracy.
Hello.
Hi.
You okay?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah, we're just waiting for a minute or two now to let anyone else that wants to come join.
Oh, brilliant. I'm seeing you all now. I've swiped my screen. Hello.
Okay. Do you know Tara? I'm just trying to think. You guys know each other. Yeah, I thought so.
Gosh, from way back, huh?
Oh.
Indeed.
How
Long
are you?
time ago. How is you?
Good. I'm really good. Thank you.
Good.
Brilliant. Well, I'm really mindful of time, and Gemma's given me a quick preview of tonight, and there's a lot in there, so you're in for a real treat. So I'm going to say let's get started. So Gemma's going to introduce herself, and she's going to sort of set the framework for how it's going to work today. So I'm just going to kick back and let you enjoy, and we'll catch up again towards the end. So over to you, Gemma.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This is very close to my heart. So this is more of a passion project. And when Becky said, will you do this for me? The answer is always going to be absolutely yes, because every part of what we're about to talk about is so close to everything that I believe in and everything that I've been working towards. And part of when I was thinking about moving forward with the coaching side, I realized that I've been coaching for a really long time, maybe my whole life in some aspects, because I think that that's what coaching is. It's about learning, and then it's about imparting that little bit of information that you learn at every bit of the journey. So to let you know who I am Gemma Sayer, and I am the breakup coach. When I talk about being a breakup coach, that doesn't necessarily mean I only talk to people who are in the midst of a breakup. It actually means more about the relational part of a breakup, which is sometimes shedding the old self. It's the parts of you that no longer serve you as well. So it can actually be within a relationship, and it can also be to do with family members, and it can do with your career as well, because there are always going to be points within our journey that we need to break up from. And that's really what I specialize in. So tonight is really about talking about that sort of thing. It's about going into the depths of what that means, how to be in a healthy relationship, and also how to find yourself within a relationship. But also, if the choice is to move forward, then obviously we all need tools in order to do that. So my premise is always heal, grow, and thrive. So we heal first, then we grow, and we ultimately thrive. So the importance of personal growth for successful relationships for me is the most important part. It's not necessarily about analyzing a relationship and saying what works and what doesn't. It's actually about doing the soul work yourself. It's looking at yourself, how you can change, how you can work on your own self-confidence and your self-belief and self-esteem, and then move forward and bring that into your relationship. So it enhances good mental and emotional, spiritual state positively within that relationship. And it's a contribution to the mutual growth as well. So for me, what we're going to talk about predominantly is actually the point of self-growth within a relationship, not just fixing what might be broken. When we don't heal and when we don't work on those toxic beliefs, particularly, you actually bring that within your relationship, and that can create insecurity, resentment, and a lot of misunderstandings. Sometimes actually about yourself. You get so lost within these relationships. Again, they don't necessarily have to be relational in a romantic point of view, but actually in a whole concept, that we can lead to very destructive communication patterns. And what we want to do is get you to know yourself on such a level and do that work that allows you to really understand who you are to be able to move forward. And part of that is understanding your belief system. Now, there might be a lot of information within this webinar that you say to yourself, do you know what? I've been over this. I've done it time and time and time again, heard it, done it, bought the t-shirt. But you know, the thing about these sorts of bits of information is it's like a spring back effect. There's always going to be something that you can take home, and it might even affect you a lot later on. But for right now, I want you just to be absorbent in this information, even if you already know it or you've covered it before, because actually you might find that something within it that becomes really helpful later on. So when we look at beliefs, we look at our own belief system. There are things that we hold within ourselves. They're drivers. They're parts of us that actually become the thing that makes our decisions. It helps us to go into those relationships, choose the people. But fundamentally, what's most important when we start understanding beliefs, especially within a relationship, is the fact that every belief has to be referenced. So we're going to spend an awful lot of time within our life looking at these relationships, looking at these beliefs and going, do you know what? Does this work for me anymore? Does it not? Is it how I want to be? Is this how I want to perceive myself? And that is where I ask you to challenge those beliefs. Beliefs can come out conversationally. It might be, oh, do you know what? Nothing good ever happens to me in a relationship. I don't feel safe ever in a relationship. And when you start actually listening to the way the words come out, you can actually see quite frequently what our belief system is. When you start recognizing those belief systems within yourself, it's actually then really easy to start picking them up on other people. And you go, oh, that's their belief system, or that's something that I believe as well. So when we look at beliefs, what we really need to look at as well is that when we have a belief system that's really strong, we actually fall back on it at our highest point of crisis and stress. So when we actually start to do a dissection of our beliefs, it's really, really important that we actually hold on to the ones that become the points of reference when we are actually in a state of stress. So in those challenging times, what we're going to do is we're going to fall back on our highest level of preparation. These might be beliefs, values, and also habits as well. And so we need to do that deep dive to understand what our beliefs actually are. And that is when we start to curate a really positive relationship, not only with yourself, but with the people around you. When we start to look at those beliefs, we then start to look at potentially a change mechanism. So we say, okay, I don't want to anymore believe that I am no longer worthy. We know that all beliefs draw down to two things: I am not worthy and I am not enough. And we need to look at those two aspects of dispowering beliefs and say, what within this can we change? Once we make a decision to make a change within those beliefs, we have to give ourselves time. We certainly don't do enough of that in our lives, and giving ourselves time to look at it, dissect it, and then equate for the change. Once we've done that, we can create action, then we create outcome, and then we level up. And this is cyclical. So this is going to happen time and time and time again. So I want you to view this as a lifelong journey. This isn't about taking on a conceptual idea right now and going, oh, it didn't work for me. I tried it for a week and it didn't work. It's actually more about having a look at these beliefs, making adjustments to the way that we perceive the world or ourselves or the elements that are in our circle, and then allowing for that change. One thing I want you to do this evening is I'd like you to write down a goal for yourself. What is something you truly long to have within your life? What does that look like for you? It can be within a relationship, or it can actually be within a friendship, or it could be within the relationship with yourself. What is something you truly long to have? Write this down and then look at it as being lofty, as if you cannot reach it. There might be a limiting belief there to say, oh, this isn't possible for me. It might be, I want to earn £1 million in the next 5 years, or it just might simply be, I want my partner to listen to me and I want our communication to be better. So write that goal down for yourself right now and then hold on to it. And I want this to be something that you use as an anchor to work towards, because when we look at what goal we're aiming towards and then we look at the belief system that we're holding, you might find that there's quite a big discord between the two things, and that's why you're struggling to get there. When we look at these things, I also want you to actually add in this as well for a little bit later on. I'm giving you a couple of tasks this evening. I want you to spend 10 minutes this evening as well, and I want you to write a breakup letter to yourself. And this is to your old self. This is a part of you that you want to move away from. So let's look at it in a sense that you're going to sit down and it's going to be, dear me, if it's for me, it'll be, dear Gemma. I thank you for all of the things that you've done for me, but these are the bits that I want to start letting go of. And you'll start to find that actually the writing becomes quite cathartic. There's no judgment here. I want you to use your hand and the pen, and I want you just to make it happen. And then I want you to observe what happens to you afterwards. So this is quite a useful tool when you're going through anything, whether it's a breakup or a relationship, or maybe there's something that's causing discord within your life. And take 10 minutes this evening to do that and see what comes up. And please do let me know. I'm sure we're going to have a chat or some sort of email going on. And please do let me know. If you want to share the letters with me, that would be great. If you don't, that's fine as well. But I do implore you to make this change this evening. When we talk about when we start to then dissect and have a really good detail about how we're going to move forward, one of the tools that I use time and time again is something called the gratitude effect. And this is about embracing the things that you are most grateful for. Now, we're going to relate this to your relationship, because actually we get sometimes very stuck in what is the negative aspect of the relationship. Our minds can sometimes get really, really drilled down into something that might be quite negative. And then we forget actually some of the positives that happen within our lives. And with the gratitude effect, it makes you start to see things maybe from a slightly different perspective. It opens up the landscape for you. So you can write a list and you can write down your gratitudes, and you can then start to really have a look at that ripple effect of how it's going to affect your relationship. You know, sometimes with my partner Simon, I can get in a situation where I get so hung up on his behavior that I actually forget all the good micro behaviors that he does for me. And I do this in order to remind myself. And that, again, it creates an anchor for change. We also have something, again, you might already be familiar with this, Ho'oponopono. Now, Ho'oponopono becomes it's a prayer and it's a Hawaiian prayer that I have used throughout my journey. So these are tools that I wanted to hand over to you tonight. Now, it means making things right. It's a karmic prayer. And what it does is you repeat this time and time again. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. Now, when there might be irritations or conflicts or something that's happening within you that maybe we can't articulate, maybe we can't find a way to exert from what's going on inside of ourselves passionately, what this can do is just kind of put it in a little bit of a bubble for you. And it actually creates a massive release. I've had to let go. I'm divorced, and I had to let go of a lot of pain and and this is one of the reasons this course is so close to me. I had to forgive an awful lot. Things which necessarily I wouldn't naturally forgive. And I use this prayer in order to be able to free myself of what the things that I was holding on to, the bits that got stuck. We use Reiki a lot for this as well. I know within our world that this is really important, but this is something that we can actively use in moments as well when you really do feel quite distressed. And mine is always in the shower of a morning. I sit there, I have something that comes up in my mind that grips me and makes me feel and takes me back to the moment. I say to myself, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I thank you and I love you. And you're saying, I'm sorry for my part in it. Please forgive me for anything that I might have done. Thank you for the lesson that this has taught me. And love being the most powerful energy that we have, we then start putting that out there. Again, have a look at this. There's lots of information out there on Ho'oponopono, and it's really, really powerful. So forgiveness within a relationship, it's not actually about accepting bad behavior. Of course it's not. There are some things that are unforgivable, and there are some scars that we just can't shake off. But it is about freeing yourself from the emotional burden and the resentment and pain that might have come along with it. Forgiveness is for you, it's not for them, but it is incredibly liberating and empowering. And if you find it difficult to create that forgiveness, especially if you're in a relationship and time again, these things are coming up and it's incredibly difficult to forgive, you can actually just forgive your part within it, and that can create a massive freedom straight away. And again, a little bit of perspective and a little bit of landscape makes a big difference. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that that prisoner was you. Of course it is. You know, when we hold on to resentment and distrust and difficulty, a lot of the time we are only putting ourselves in a prison. Forgiving others, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. All roads we want to lead back to peace. Always. That's the point. We want to live our best life, and we want to sit in a situation where we give ourselves permission as well to live in a place that is authentic, happy, and certainly peaceful. And sometimes that curates a bit of forgiveness. But that doesn't mean that if we create forgiveness, that we're not going to be assertive within our relationship. We are not going to roll over. We are not doormats. We are not here to people please. We are also here to be heard and hold a space for ourselves that is incredibly powerful. So never be bullied into silence. Never allow yourself to be made a victim. Accept no one's definition of your life, but the definition you put on it yourself. And this is where we go back to the beginning of what I was talking about. When we create our versions of ourselves, when we live in our truth and we live consciously, we start to create a version of ourselves that feels so strong and so empowered that you can lift up. And then you actually end up lifting up the people around you. And assertiveness can be a massive self-esteem booster. It reduces anxiety because you're actually speaking the words that you need to speak in a really clear, communicative way. It can create conflict resolution within a relationship. But when we think about assertiveness, we always want to understand the concept that we're creating a win-win resolution. If you go into an assertive approach trying to squash the other person because of the pain that you're holding on to yourself, fundamentally, you will never be able to create that win-win situation. And when one of you wins in a relationship, that means one of you loses. And if one of you loses, that is never going to be let go of from the other person. It's a long time, but unless they do the work, it's going to be a long time before they release that. So you always want to be looking at a win-win resolution. And sometimes that looks like, when we look, I kind of curated an idea here of what that might look like within a relationship. So one of you is taking the car to work, and it's frustrating the other one because you're consistently late. So the non-assertive approach would be you continue to accept their behavior and remain quiet, even though it's affecting your job performance. Obviously, that's incredibly passive, and we then start to get into a situation where we build up resentment ourselves. And I think all of us can we can believe in our relationship that there are parts that compromise just steps over a little bit too far. An aggressive approach can be you explode in frustration, saying you're always making us late with your irresponsibility. You need to get your act together. Well, when you start pointing fingers and when you start saying you stop taking responsibility for that moment, and we stop living consciously. And then we've got the assertive approach, where you calmly express your concern. I've noticed that we've been arriving late to work recently, and it's impacting my performance. Can we discuss a solution to ensure we both get to work on time? Now, this is just an example because I wanted to make it as broad and general as possible. But when we look at this, we can understand that with a win-win approach, we need to sit down. But the only way we can do that is when we know each other and when we know ourselves so very well. Then we go on to the observation. I have to be honest, this is one of my favorite parts when I talk about self-growth, is observation. Observation has the power to awaken our self-awareness. When we start to believe in ourselves and we start to notice our behavior, we can then start to decide what we accept and what we don't. A lot of the time when we hear the chatter in our mind and we listen to it profoundly, we actually lose our sense of self because we're actually not observing the chatter. We're just abiding by it. And when we start to make observations of the conversation that's happening in our heads, we can actually suffer less, because you can choose to ignore it. It is actually a choice that we have, and you can become the observer. And when we talk about the higher self and when we talk about reparenting ourselves, that is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about listening, making change where necessary. So when we turn our gaze inward and become observers of our own behavior, we unlock the key to self-awareness and personal growth. And this is so true. So change starts with us. Things that can help is identify what needs to go. Let go of what needs to go. This might be in a journal. This might be in a video recording. This might just be you sitting down talking to your friend and going, I think I need to change this. I don't know why and I don't know how right now, but I recognize that there's a feeling here that's not sitting comfortably with me. And then understand why. Why is that not suiting you anymore? Again, we go back to the beliefs. Maybe it's the I am not lucky in relationships. Okay, well, let's explore that. Why do you have that belief? Because it certainly isn't true. Because it's a belief, it's not a fact. We can actually then start to understand, well, actually, I believe this because this is how I've referenced it previously. Every relationship I've been in, this has happened. And then you can start to draw it down and feel the emotions of it. Whenever I'm doing coaching, I sit down and the first thing we do is we do a brain dump. What's on your mind? Let's go through what's happening for you right now, because feeling those emotions in every moment and observing them actually becomes an incredibly powerful change mechanism. And again, we go back to Ho'oponopono. Forgive yourself for it. You're doing the best you can in this moment. So forgive yourself for these moments and focus on the present. Live in the right now. Conscious living becomes incredibly important with any relationship. Visualize the future. A visualization becomes, again, an incredibly powerful tool. When you look at your relationship, what do you envision it to be? What do you want it to be? And this might sit comfortably in the goal that we spoke about. Maybe part of your goal is to have a relationship that you just really want to be the best version of the relationship. It gives you all the feels, you're love focused, you're focusing on your love language, what that means for you and how you can be best nurtured within it. Or it might be actually, again, turning the lens back on yourself, how you want to behave within a relationship, how you want to show up. And take baby steps. Again, forgive yourself. Don't rush. There is no rush to this thing called life. We take it step by step and then reflect and reassess, sorry, because this becomes an incredibly important thing. When we look at self-reflection, you can then create more change, further change. And then with part of reflecting, assess, the couple of the questions that I want to leave you with is, what have you learned and how have you grown? We need to have a look at the processes that we go through within a relationship and actually monitor how far we have come. As snakes shed their skin and butterflies transform, we must shed old beliefs, toxic habits, and unhelpful relationships to progress. The goal is for you. Be a little bit self-centric here and say, what do I need in order to progress? And then when you bring that energy to your relationship will change and it will certainly flourish. It's a difficult process. All personal growth can be difficult. There is parts of it that's easy when you've gone through the healing process, but fundamentally, there is a little bit of resistance when we start to create change. So be okay with that. Be okay with being a bit uncomfortable. And releasing what doesn't align with our core values, we make room for new opportunities, of course, because nature hates a void, right? So coupled up with your beliefs, let's have a little look at values, because values become the compass by which we navigate the landscape of our life. Now, I want you to see values and beliefs and habits as hand in hand, the compass and also drivers that happen within ourselves. And true self-reflection and introspection happens when we start to look at our values and what makes us us. So when I talk about conscious living becomes when we talk about self-awareness, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, stress management, value alignment and self-compassion, autonomy, goal achievement and self-care. Living in the moment, actually living in what I refer to as the I. Now, these things can be affected quite simply with cultural background, family and upbringing, education, personal experiences, all of the things that make up who we are, everything that is completely engaged with us on a day-to-day level. Of course, we talk about media and society at large. This is who we should be. This is how we should behave. And this is how our relationship should be. When you live consciously, you live in alignment with yourself. And part of that, again, is going back to beliefs and values and habits. And some examples of values could be honesty, friendship, balance, self-expression. You might find that these values are the things that you hold incredibly strong and they are drivers. And what I want you to do and what I implore you to move forward with is start to recognize them. Start to observe, write them down, grab a diary, grab a video diary of yourself and start to really explore what those values mean for you. And when we go to living in the I, this again is a fantastic tool to live consciously. A lot of the time we are driven by the extension of the world around us and even our partner, our romantic partner. And we forget to ask ourselves, how do I feel about this? What do I want to do about this? And don't judge your answer. You haven't got to share your answer, but don't judge it, because actually that's you talking to you and saying, well, actually, I want to action this. I want to do something about this. This isn't making me feel good. It may not be acceptable to everybody else that I need change. But when you start living in the I, you start looking at yourself, you start to then be able to create this version of yourself that shows up in your relationship and actually has a positive impact because you're standing true to yourself. There are things that you can do that can help you. Recognize the stream of chatter in your mind. Start listening to it. And does it actually relate to you? And does it relate to your relationship? There are times where I can unconsciously live and I'm walking around my house going, oh, I can't believe he's done this to me again. And I can't believe he's made me feel like this. And then the feelings come up. I've activated my sympathetic nervous system. I'm anxious, I'm sweaty, and I really just want to fight. But actually what I've not done is I've not checked in with myself. I've gone back to old patterns, old feelings, old rhetoric that goes through my mind. So pause and observe. Have a look at yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, what's coming up for you in these moments, and acknowledge without judgment. You're not supposed to judge yourself. That's not what's important here. Just to observe. So when you observe, we don't judge children for not learning to walk correctly the first time they stand on their 2 feet. So don't judge yourself when you start to make that observation. So reconnecting with the I in the moment that the feelings come up. Let the feelings be the trigger, the thing that we anchor onto. And then we go, oh, I know this feeling. I'm not going to do anything about it, but I am just going to observe it. And then make a conscious choice. Make a more conscious choice about how you want to react in that moment. And I swear your partner will be very grateful for it in the end. Within a relationship, there's a point here that I really want to just touch on. Do you find avoiding pain often takes precedence over the pursuit of pleasure? Because when we listen to the chatter in our mind a lot of the time, what we will tend to do is listen to the strong part that pushes us towards the avoidance of pain. And it really is a very, very powerful motivator. And sometimes we will avoid changing our lives or changing decisions that we make or changing actions because we actually want to avoid the outcome of the decision that we've made, because it's complex and because it might be painful. And then we shy away. Again, I'm not asking you to create action, just observation. If you're creating an avoidance of pain around a thought that's going through in your mind, that might be somewhere you need to do a little bit more of a deeper dive, because the human mind has a tendency to adhere to established patterns of thought. We always want to sit on the rails, the train rails, and go straight ahead because it can predict the outcome, which makes us safe. So again, use your feelings as your anchor. If you want to make change, you can do that through positive affirmations. And what I tend to do is polarize the negative thinking and create it into a positive affirmation. Simon isn't doing the things that I need him to do. Okay, so my affirmation for today is going to be Simon is always supporting me. And I'm just going to revert that to myself time and time again, if it feels right, because I'm going to use my feelings as my guidance. And if it does feel right, then I'm going to repeat it to myself. So I'm going to use that polarized point of view of the thoughts in my head, and I'm going to start experimenting with how I might be able to start moving out of it. So we're going to self-reflect. We're going to let go. We're going to start to map our values. We're going to envision a future. We're going to affirm, and we're going to take action when necessary. But above all, we are going to monitor ourselves. We are going to observe, and then we're going to show up in a relationship that is the most authentic version of ourselves, grounded and prepared to take any pressures that come our way, because we're going to be so practiced in our new positive way of being that when pressure does get put on us, we fall back to our highest level of preparation. So that's the webinar for today. Thank you so much. I know we're going to go into questions now. So Becky, I don't know if you want to take over in this moment.
Yeah, well, thank you, Gemma.
My pleasure.
There's a lot to take in, and for those of you that just would like to take a little bit more time to digest, this is recorded, so you can come back and you can listen to all this content again, because what I loved about what you shared, Gemma, was it was actually really, really comprehensive and really sort of touched on not just relationships in general, but like say our relationship with ourselves. So I'm going to open the field up to questions. Is there anything that you wanted further clarification on, or something you'd like Gemma to explain a bit more, or something that you'd like to run past her and get her insight and her wisdom on? Has anyone got any questions?
Don't be shy. There's always going to be something that goes on in the back of the mind that you want to ask. And I know it's a lot of content, so there's a lot of different bits in here that there might be one thing that touched on you. Is there anything that you got from it? Is there a take home that you felt that was valuable to you? You have to take yourself off mute though if you're going to speak, just so
Go on, Hannah, you've moved forward. You look like you have a question.
I'm always the one who sort of starts, I feel. Yeah, I first I was like, oh, I don't need to write a breakup letter. And then I was like, oh, actually, it's a very good idea because there's been some like blame that I've carried with myself, and I don't really need to carry that blame with myself. So it's like, okay, yes, brilliant. I'm going to do this. So
yeah, it
that
becomes
was
a
very
really
good.
powerful tool. It does. And you know, at the beginning I said that there's going to be a lot of this content that we automatically go, no, not for me, don't need it. This bit I don't need, or I've already done this. And actually, when you go back to it, you go, oh, okay, now I see it in a slightly different way. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I'm glad you had that as a take home. That's brilliant.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. What's really the line that has stood out to me through your wonderful 30 minutes is freeing myself of emotional burden.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm older, I guess, than most of the that is the difficult part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if I was to work on anything, it would have to be that for me.
Can you see how the elements of that come into play when you start to actually look at what you're holding on to and why? So we kind of focus so heavily on the emotional burden and so much on actually what it feels like and how we carry it. And sometimes it's a little bit of self-harm, right? We're punishing ourselves for connections or things that we might have perceived that we did. And one of the reasons it becomes so important to do an exploratory version and sit down and really observe it is that's when we start to be able to draw it out and let it go. We might be acutely aware of the thing that we're holding on to, but sometimes we don't understand the why, not in its true form. So to be able to absorb it and go down into a little bit of a deeper level, it becomes an incredibly powerful thing. And then giving yourself permission just to let it go. Some things don't have to be a big journey to the end. They can just be do you know what? I'm going to forgive myself for this. I'm going to let this go in this moment. And I'm just going to choose something different for myself today. I'm glad that was brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. That's really great. Is there any other questions?
Great minds think alike. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Becky. Hi, Gemma. Thank you so much for the presentation. Apologies, I was a bit late joining.
No, right.
I just wanted to say thank you and just to reflect on what you said. For me, the take-home message was about forgiving yourself. Well, when you forgive, it's not necessarily for the other person, but it's to set yourself free. And I found that really powerful. And the just sort of written it down here. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. The Hawaiian hope.
I have to be honest, I do get it wrong a couple of times because my brain learnt it one way and it actually is pronounced another. So I would say probably 5 times out of 10 I get it right. But it is incredibly powerful. It is probably one of the most powerful tools that I've had and utilized throughout my journey, and especially in the darker moments where I've had to really do some deep forgiveness work. Not just for my own behavior, but for the behavior of others as well. And the beautiful thing about Ho'oponopono is you sit in a space where you can just release it. You haven't got to digest it. You haven't got to analyze it. You haven't even got to put a name to it. You can just have a feeling and apply it. And you'd be amazed how quickly you let it go. That doesn't mean it's going to not come back every now and again, because the really deep stuff comes back quite a lot. We have to do quite a bit of digging. But by using this, it really is a powerful mechanism to be able to just in the moment go, I'm going to forgive myself in this moment, or I'm going to forgive the person or the emotion or whatever it might be in the time. So thank you for that. I'm really glad you found that valuable.
Any other questions or take homes? Tara?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation, Gemma. Yeah, I think I'll go back to the forgiveness too, because it's really rang a bell with me and I resonated with that, which is an issue I have had quite a bit of struggle for over many years. But it is good to, it's not necessarily forgiving the other person, it's just letting yourself to be free and free up yourself from all the worry, anxiety, and everything else. So it was really, really resonated with me. Thank you very much for that.
I'm so pleased, because it really is a core part of the whole of us, really. And, you know, there are times where we hold on to things so tightly, and then we don't forgive ourselves for the emotions that comes up for just holding on to it, you know. And there's parts of this then that we impart on other people. And then we have to forgive ourselves for that as well. And, you know, it's really important that we do that for ourselves, because peace is always the goal, right? Happiness and peace, and being in a place where there's accordance between you and the relationships that you have. So it becomes an incredibly powerful thing. So thank you so much, Tara. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Excellent.
I think for me, like, a couple of things that really stood out is like still being you in a relationship. Like, I feel like there's not really a lot of education out there that teaches us how to be in relationships. So we kind of look to our peers and our elders, you know, and we may have grown up in an unhealthy relationship where one person's very dominant, or one person's very passive, and our role models. I feel like a lot of people turn to celebrities for guidance on how to behave as a human being. So I feel like there's not always a great start for people about what a healthy relationship looks like. So often some people can either just be really dominant in a relationship and they don't even know that they're doing it, or other people might just be carrying on their patterns that they had in their family where they were the quiet one, and then they go into the relationship and it just feels comfortable and normal to continue to be the quiet one. I love the bit you put about, you know, conflict resolution, like the passive response, the aggressive response, but actually what the middle of the road is. And I feel like that's what we need more education about. What is a healthy response? I remember when we did our pre-event chat, and I asked you, you know, do you still have arguments with your partner? And you said, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's important. It's so important, because if you don't and you almost pretend to be perfect, right? And it's not just a female thing. It's an all over thing. When we're in a sense of self, living outside of ourselves a lot of the time, and some of you may know what I mean by that and some of you may not, but frequently we live outside of ourselves. And when we're in a conflict, we can sometimes throw that at other people, throw parts of ourselves at other people. So when you're in yourself, when you're actually living consciously and you're having an argument, it becomes incredibly cathartic and a very, very healthy tool in order to be able to then create that resolution and move forward. And not only that, but it builds trust. Because if you can be your worst, perceptually worst, and that person can hold a space for you, it becomes an incredibly trusted space to be in. But you can only achieve that when you really start to break down these parts of yourselves, know yourselves almost on a granular level. So what you will accept, what you won't accept. And that's a lifelong journey in itself.
And would you agree? I tend to find that how you treat yourself, other people treat you the same way that you treat yourself. So if you always put yourself last, other people will habitually put yourself last also.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah, we teach other people how to treat us, right? So if we're treating ourselves in a certain way, we're just showing other people how we want to be treated. So if you're hard on yourself, if you don't love yourself and you're being really self-deprecating, even if you're joking, You know, oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. Okay, so you're kind of showing people where your levels are. So there's a point, and this, again, it doesn't have to be rigid in its nature. There are times, obviously, funny is funny, and it doesn't have to be rigid, but we teach other people how to treat us, and it's incredibly important that we know us well enough to know how we want to be treated. What's really important as well to remember in this is when you start doing this level of work, you may change. And that means your relationship may change as well. Your partner might not be ready for your growth. That doesn't mean that your growth should be stinted. That just means that you have to create a win-win situation throughout the growth. Now, if the end of that process means that it's an intolerable relationship, then maybe different discussions need to be had. But absolutely, you have to allow for that for yourself. It's a gift you will give yourself.
What advice would you give to someone that's going or would like to get into a new relationship? The
good stuff.
Based on what you've shared this evening and what you know, like, how would you coach someone moving into a new relationship and how they would sort of tackle all of that and like newness and uncertainty, but still stay within the principles you shared?
Yeah, I think it becomes easier as you get to know yourself, because you no longer attract the people that potentially are going to do you harm at the beginning. Like, let's say, for instance, we had a gap within ourselves or a gap within our knowledge that was really becoming a magnet for people that wanted to do us some harm. And I don't mean just necessarily physically harm, but a lot of emotional harm. People tend to like to unload their suitcase in a relationship, especially on people that are ready to receive it, because they don't understand themselves well enough. When you start to do the work, it actually becomes quite easy, because you start to then attract people that align with your values, and everybody else goes on the waistline. It just disappears. So I would say that a level of confidence can be had here when you start to go into new relationships. And as long as you're doing that exploratory work consistently, how does this make me feel? How do I want to be in this relationship? How do I want to show up? And a part of where that goes as well is something called a full body yes. When you have a full body yes with a partner and you meet somebody, and it's not just sexual attraction and it's not just mental alignment, or maybe it's future goals, you just both decide that you want to have kids and he seems like an attractive fellow to have them with, there has to be a full body yes. And when you know yourself well enough and you go, oh, that's a full body yes, I'm in this is good for me, it becomes easier. So I think that there has to be an element of training, self-learning, development, spending time with yourself, getting to know yourself, and enjoying it as well. That becomes a really important part, is go with the flow until you hit a roadblock.
Because your point about like how much of your life is determined by moving away from pain as opposed to moving away from pleasure. I think sometimes when we've had really difficult experiences, like, we tend to just accept a shrinking of our world. Because we're just like, we don't want to go there, we don't want to be cheated on again, or we don't want to just feel like we're not matched with someone again, or we don't want to like give our heart and soul to someone for it to not work out. And I think there's an element of we need to challenge ourselves, because if we're not growing, we're shrinking.
Absolutely. And we do that to ourselves, right? So the person that cheated on us actually ends up shrinking, giving us this thing where we then start to make ourselves incredibly small. And that's where you have to then go back to your belief system. Have I adapted a belief system that is telling me that every relationship is going to end in disaster? Is every man or every woman going to cheat on me? And then you have to look at the concordance with that. Is that true? Is that what's actually happening? Or when I went into this relationship, I didn't come with my full self. I just came with part of myself. And maybe next time I need to actually come with my full self to show up for this relationship. And maybe that means that he isn't the right person for me. Maybe I look at it and I go, oh, actually, this isn't a full body yes, and it never was at the beginning. So I can say no, because if it's not a full body yes, absolutely it should be a no. And so you then start to look at these things, and it's not then thrust upon you. Sometimes it's then in a situation where you can make choices, what's acceptable and what isn't for you. Now, there are things that happen in relationships that absolutely are 100% out of your control. 1,000,000%. There is nothing you can do about it. It was going to happen, and it has happened. And there are ways in which you can create coping strategies around that, which will give you a much more healthier view moving forward. I think Becky has actually left the chat. I think she left halfway through that one. So does anybody else have anything that they wanted to ask me at this point? Any more questions or any input or anything that they wanted to go through? Okie dokie. Brilliant.
Am I back for you, Gemma?
You are. Here you are. I was just saying that you've, I think you've, Zoom's chucked you out again.
Yeah, twice tonight. That's not very good, is it? All right. Well, look, you do have a little offer to share with people, if anything that's resonated with anyone tonight and feels like actually this is something that they would benefit from looking at in greater depth. Do you want to talk it through? Yeah, so for me, I am a coach. I'm a life coach, and as I say, I specialize in this area. So I do have a website, which is and it's loveyourlifelifecoaching.co.uk. So please visit it, have a little look, and I do coaching sessions, and there's lots of different versions of that as well. I've also got a course that's up and running at the moment, which is a 7-day micro course. So there's lots of stuff there to have a look through. It is pretty new, so there is going to be bits that's going to be added on as time goes on. So do subscribe. There's a little sales plug there. But fundamentally, thank you so much. And I really, really, really appreciate your time this evening. I do value time. I find it very important. So the fact that you've given a part of your Friday evening up for me is amazing. So thank you. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Gemma. I feel like you've done such a great job of talking about a really huge topic. And I know, having watched your journey for many years now, you are absolutely authentic on this, and a real good go-to person for someone that wants to dive deeper. So do check out her website and stuff. And I will get the recording out to people by Monday. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely, lovely weekend or week, whenever you're watching this. And we'll catch up again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.